Ryan Brown from J. Ryan Brown Law. Today we are talking about 3 ways that we have used to successfully fight against DUI cases. And one of those includes catching law enforcement officers lying in their reports. And we're going to save that one for last. So first, during a DUI investigation, there's oftentimes the officer, always pretty much, is going to ask the driver to participate in SFSTs, that's standardized field sobriety tests. So in Georgia, at least, there's no reason a driver should do these. You can't pass the test. You can only fail them. And the refusal to do them can't be used against you in court. Regardless of that, and because people don't know, which is one reason why I'm out here trying to inform people, is that you don't have to do those. But people do them every day, right? And one way that we can attack those when we go to court is they're called standard for a reason, and they're supposed to be administered in a standard fashion. And officers oftentimes mess up the instructions. And this is a lesson that goes back to us being children, where in elementary school, you may get a question wrong on the exam or the test, because you didn't read the instructions, right? Elementary school teachers hammer that because reading instructions is important. So if the instructions are bad, it makes the test bad. If the officer does not tell you certain things, then he counts that against you. That's not a fair test. And listen, we've seen this happen. I've seen a test where you're supposed to keep your arms by your side, okay? And the driver doesn't know that unless the officer tells them like they're supposed to. I've had cases where the officer did not tell the person, keep your arms by your side, and then in turn marked them as failing part of their test because they raised their hands up from their side. So they're docking someone, a driver, for something that they didn't even know was in the rules. Completely unfair. And that happens all the time, where we have officers docking people on the field sobriety test that were not given the instructions. And listen, the way that we catch that is we review these videos in detail. So luckily now, most traffic stops, most field sobriety tests are going to be captured on video, and we are able to review those and go over them and see if these officers are fudging. And if so, we're going to call them on it. Okay, the next one way that people are charged with DUIs in Georgia is through what's called a DUI less safe. So if we're in the context of alcohol, that means that the state is charging someone with consuming alcohol to the point that they are less safe to drive, okay? Now, prosecutors and officers a lot of times take a huge jump from someone consumed alcohol to they must be less safe. And that's certainly too much of a logical leap. And it's up to us to call them on that and to defend folks against that kind of government overreach. So we must challenge that leap. When the state says they drank alcohol, therefore they must not be safe to drive, or they must be less safe to drive, we have to challenge that. How do you know? Is it true to say that a 6'5", 300-pound man who had one beer at dinner must be a less safe driver on the way home simply because he had a beer? Well, we certainly don't think so. And we tend to be in the minority when it comes to that. But challenging that idea from the government and from law enforcement that consumption equals impairment is yielded us tremendous results in court. So finally, cops do lie. And the most common way that we see that, and not all of them lie, but some do, and I've caught them in lies. A case comes to mind immediately that we're going to talk about, where when there's a DUI, officers fill out what's called a DUI report. And this report is specific to DUI cases because it allows people, or the investigating officers, to denote what clues they find from these field sobriety tests. And I remember dealing with a law enforcement officer, and I'm not going to out the agency, but he had put in his report that the client, or that the defendant in this case, was raising their arms for balance. And on cross-examination, you must call out these officers who lie. And because we had watched this video and compared it to the report, so that's kind of our process. We take the DUI report, we take the video, we make comparisons. Because the officer had put in his report that this person failed the test by raising their arms, We compare that to the video. And in the video, there's absolutely no evidence of this person raising their arms. So on cross-examination, we asked the officer, hey, you put in your report that they raised their arms for balance. I watched the video. I don't think that happened, officer. Was this a mistake? He said, no, it wasn't a mistake. She raised her arms. So when that happens, how do you confront someone effectively in court who is not telling the truth? Luckily, we have video here. So I said, officer, we're going to do an exercise together. We're going to watch this video in front of the jury, and I'm going to let you tell me where she raises her arms. We're going to watch the whole video. It's not a trick or a gotcha. And that's what we did. We watched the video, and he doubled down and said, oh, well, it looks like maybe she didn't raise her arms. And the jury knew that, and the jury returned a fair verdict in that matter. But it's so important because what an officer in that situation is banking on is a lawyer who's not going to review the video and the report because it's time consuming to do that. A defendant who hopefully will just come to court and plea and is not going to exercise their constitutional rights to counsel and to cross-examination and to a trial, right? The lawyer is banking on a prosecutor who's not going to take the gumption to check them and say, hey, officer, this is a bad case. You made a mistake here. Those are assumptions that law enforcement is making, and they're wrong because there are lawyers out there and clients out there who are willing to put up a fight. So look, that's 3 ways that we have had success fighting DUIs. It's examining the faulty administration of standard field sobriety test. It's challenging the false idea that consumption equals a less safe driver by itself. And third, it is the careful examination of the evidence, comparing reports to videos, and then when an officer is lying, not being afraid to call him on it because they have so much power. It is our duty to call them out when they are doing that, to try to infringe on someone's rights. Those are the 3 ways we've had success recently. There are more. Thank you for tuning in. Should be another video next Friday. We appreciate you. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, follow us on TikTok. We appreciate it. Lots of good content coming your way.